The video assistant referee in the World Cup, and going by the way it has generated a lot of controversy in some countries, especially England in recent times. We foresee that in the World Cup proper, there are going to be issues of goals, players, tackles and all of that, fouls, and, the delay, in reaching decisions. Is it going to really affect the flow of the World Cup? The second question is, when you look at the fact that since the inception of the World Cup in 1930, we have only had 8 countries that have won it. And Africa, Asia, and CONCACAF seem not to have been able to pick it yet. Do you see very soon, even with the proposed increase, do you see any African country winning it soon? Those are my questions.
Thank you. To start with the second question, it's true that historically only Europeans and South Americans have won the World Cup. But football has evolved all over the world, and incredible progress has been made all over the world. There are no more weak teams really in the World Cup. And if you look at, for example, the last World Cup, there were some results according to which, for instance, 2 former world champions like Italy and England were kicked out by Costa Rica, which is not really historically. When it comes to the second question, or the first one, on VAR, on video assistant refereeing, we will decide at the IFAB meeting on the 3rd of March whether the test phase will be considered as successful or not. So far, the signs are very positive. Of course, there are discussions. Always there are discussions. There are always discussions about football, since football exists. For example, the rule on everyone knows that if you play your ball with your hand in the penalty area, then there is a penalty. But every Sunday or every weekend or every time there is a match, we have controversies on whether it was voluntary or not, or did the ball go to the hand or the hand go to the ball, or God knows what kind of interpretations can be given on something that is clearly stipulated in the rules, because the interpretation, of course, of the rules is important. And when it comes to the interpretation of the rules and of the laws of the game, it's always the referee who decides. What we want to do with the VAR is to give an assistance, an additional assistance to the referee to take the right decisions and to not commit big mistakes. My opinion is, and I was very skeptical about video assistant refereeing, but I also said that we have to try it, and if we don't try it, we will not know whether it works or not. I moved my opinion quite a lot from skepticism to not only to optimism, and now to reality, which is corroborated by concrete facts. We studied around 1,000 matches with video assistant refereeing help, and the margin of errors by the referee, which was at 93% without video assistant refereeing, has moved to 99% with video assistant refereeing. These are facts. There is still 1% where you will have controversy. I hope, and I'm convinced, that the World Cup this year will not be decided by a mistake of the referee.
In the last year alone, we've seen crises in at least 5 different African countries: Kenya, Sudan, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, and this only seems to happen on this continent. Now, is there something that FIFA intends to do to ensure that we don't have this constant crisis in African football? Thank you.
Yes, we are working with all the associations in Africa to try to help and to make sure that we don't face again this situation of crisis. We are also working with the governments, and this is also an important point. I mean, we will certainly not accept any government's interference in the sporting aspects or in the running of football association. So if there is a sports minister in any country who thinks that he can just kick out the president of the FA and put in his cousin to become the new president, well, we will not allow this to happen.
Professional footballer, should his previous clubs should be paid all the way from 12 to 23. But we know for a fact that it doesn't happen like that. I'll take Kelechi Iheanacho, for instance. He's 21, moved from Taye Academy to Manchester City. Maybe that was the only transfer payment his academy saw. But from Manchester City to Leicester, I doubt if Taye Academy has gotten anything from there. So how do we really enforce this? Because it's the African federations generally that need these funds. It's our academies that need all of these monies. If we do not get these monies, we do not develop. So how can you ensure that there's the trickle-down effect comes down? And it's really very important. I know it's not FIFA. I know it's IFAB, I should think. But with FIFA, with four members on IFAB, you should be able to ensure that this is done as quickly as possible. And enforcement, how can you make it happen?
Well, we are, thanks for the question. This is exactly what worries us and what worries me in particular. I mean, transfer fees go up, commissions for agents or intermediaries go up, and solidarity, contributions, training compensation goes down. There is something wrong with the system, and we need to address this one. We are doing it now. We will hopefully come up, even in the course of this year, still with a new regulatory framework, because the rules already exist. The rule that you have to pay 5% of a transfer fee to the training clubs, this rule already exists. It's just not enforced, and it's not enforced because it's not known who the training clubs are, where the player has been trained, what the history of the player is. There is nobody that claims their money, and so on and so forth. So I think we need to make the system simpler, make the system clearer, and make sure that in order for a transfer to happen, at least the solidarity part and the training compensation part needs to be paid up front, maybe through a central fund. We are studying these kind of measures, and then redistribute it to make sure that the money goes where the player has been trained, and that those who train, the player also gets some reward for the training. It's not a lot, but it's still enough to make a training club, not only in Africa, there are many countries around the world who are training players, make a training club really survive.
Okay, my full name is Anthony Beckett Deremo, Sports Radio 88.9 Brilla FM. There are about 114 days before the commencement of the World Cup. Once in a while we see reports that some stadiums are behind schedule. I'm wondering if you can put a percentage as regards the readiness of Russia. Are they 70% ready, 80%? How ready is Russia as of today, 114 days?
As of today, 100%. As of today, Russia is 100% ready in accordance with the schedule that we have determined together with the Russian authorities. I've been myself to Russia, and I met President Putin last week. And I mean, all the delays that existed in the past have been overcome, and now it's just a question of having the test events, which, of course, due to the weather currently in Russia cannot take place now, but will take place in the course of March, April, and May before the World Cup. But everything is ready and up and running, and it will be a fantastic World Cup. Of course, there are still a few little paintings, a few doors to be painted, and a few, I don't know, screws to be put in to finalize completely 100% the work, but everything is top, and the experience of everyone going to Russia will be fantastic.